Buenos días, estudiantes. Bienvenidos. Welcome to el pretérito de verbos irregulares. Now remember that el pretérito is the past tense that we've been looking at. And just like in English, when we speak in the past, Spanish also has a bunch of irregular verbs. So just to review, el pretérito is used to talk about completed actions in the past. And here are the forms of AR verbs. Haste o, amos hastes aron. Remember, those accent marks are key in the meaning, that showing that it's in the past tense, so don't forget those. Same with ER and IR verbs, verbos ER, IR, iste, yo, imos, istes, ieron. We also covered a few irregulars in the last screencast, like hacer, ir, ver, y dar. So here are a few examples just to refresh your memory. Ayer yo hice mi cama por primera vez. Yesterday I made my bed for the first time. Sad. El año pasado mi familia fue a Perú. Last year my family went to Peru. El jueves pasado yo salí con Marta. Last Thursday I went out with Martha. 2 weeks ago, hace 2 semanas, Lola y Paco visitaron a su abuela. Lola and Paco visited their grandmother. ¿Qué película visteis vosotros anoche? What movie did you guys see last night? Y no me diste el dinero, lo necesito. You didn't give me the money, I need it. So, also, no olvides las expresiones útiles. Don't forget those useful expressions that remind us we're talking in the past, like ayer, el año pasado, hace 2 semanas, anoche, etc. So let's move into some more irregulars. CAR GAR ZAR verbs are verbs that end in gar, car, or zar, and they have an irregular yo form only. So la raíz, the stem of the verb, and la forma yo cambia. It changes. So for verbs that end in car, for example, sacar, you change it to, the C changes to a QU and becomes saque, because we want to keep that hard K sound. Jugar becomes jugué with a GU. Again, we want to keep the hard G sound. And empezar, the Z changes to a C, just because that's a rule in Spanish. You can't have a Z next to an E. So don't forget, these are just in the yo form. And you always, of course, have to have that accent on the E as well. So here are a couple examples with verbos car gar zar. Anoche yo busqué mi mochila, pero no la encontré. Last night I looked for my backpack, but I couldn't find it. A las 7:59 llegué a la escuela. At 7:59 I arrived at school. Ayer yo almorcé con mi familia. Yesterday I ate lunch with my family. So there's a couple more car gar zar verbs for you. Here are some more irregulares that are very important, very useful, and we will cover these ones this year. There are a few more that are on your list, your green preterite list, but these are just the most important ones right now. So as you can see that each of these verbs, estar, poder, poner, tener, querer, venir, decir, traer, they basically change their stem. And then you add one of these endings to it to create the preterite. So estar, remember, is to be, and oops, darn. So if you want to say, like, yesterday I was sick, yo estuve enferma or enfermo. Poder, to be able to, so I could or I couldn't. Poner is to put, so I put something. So you would add those endings. Tener, I had. tuve, tuviste, tuvo. Querer, I wanted. And venir, vine would be I came to the party or something like that. Decir, I said would be dije. He said, she said would be dijo, which is one of the most common words in Spanish. Traer, I brought. Traje, traje comida a clase. And remember, none of these, notice how none of these have accent marks. So that's just another way that they're irregular. No acentos. Here's an example of a little story with some of these forms. Este fin de semana mis padres dijeron ayuda en casa. This weekend my parents said help around the house. Mi mamá puso los químicos y toallas en la escalera. My mom put the chemicals and towels on the stairs. Tuve que limpiar el baño y pasar la aspiradora. I had to clean the bathroom and vacuum. Luego, mi amigo vino a mi casa y trajo comida. Later, my friend came to my house and brought food. So you can see all of these are talking about last weekend using these irregular verbs. Another irregular thing that happens in the pretérito is that verbos de bota AR y ER en el presente, so verbos de bota that we've studied, they don't have a stem change. No tienen cambio radical en el pretérito. They don't exist. So no verbos de bota. No boot verbs. So an example of a boot verb is volar, to fly. And volar is a boot verb in the present tense. The O changes to a UE. But here, you can see that in the pretérito, it is not a stem changing verb. It's not a boot verb. So, los sábados yo vuelo cometas en el parque. On Saturdays, I fly kites in the park. In el pretérito, it is not changed. So, ayer yo volé mi cometa en la playa. Yesterday, I flew my kite in the beach. So here are those forms. You treat it just like a regular AR verb in el pretérito. So, aste, o, amos, astes, aron. And there's your stem, vol. So no change. However, verbos de bota, IR, so boot verbs, IR boot verbs as we know them in the present, do have kind of an odd change in el pretérito. Son especiales, they're special, en la tercera persona. So just the third person, just él, ella, usted, and ellos, ellas, ustedes forms. So what you do is you use the first vowel, la primera vocal. So for example, dormir is a boot verb that changes from O to UE. So in el pretérito, we just use the U and change the stem just to a U only in the third person form. So let me show it to you. That's a little complicated. Treat it like a regular IR verb in el pretérito, y, iste, yo, imos, istes, ieron. And you can see that we use the same stem, dorm, in all the forms except this third person form. Él, ella, usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes. And so it becomes durmió and durmieron. Sometimes instead of boot verbs, we call these sandal verbs or sandalias. So check out my little sandalia there to show you that it's just those bottom forms that change. I know, it's cheesy. Here are a couple other examples of those. So vestirse is another one that would only change in those sandal forms. And pedir, to ask for, is another verb that would just change in those sandal forms, the third person forms. Well, that's a lot of irregulars. We're going to have to practice them a lot. Here's a funny comic that I found. But I'm not thinking of you in the past tense. Love ya. Adios.